Welcome back to Brazil Crypto Report. Today we're joined by Mayra Siqueira of Algorand Foundation. We talk about her work building out Algorand's community in Brazil and her prior experience as Binance's first employee in the country. All right, so we're here today with Mayra from the Algorand Foundation. Mayra, thanks so much for being here.
And thank you for having me over. So thanks for the invitation, Aaron, and it's a pleasure to be here.
Amazing. Well, to get started, why don't you tell us a bit about yourself and your journey into crypto and Web3?
Okay, I consider it kind of a long journey if you consider how much time we have for the Web3 and blockchain and crypto industry. I've been around since 2018, so I was one of those people that actually got interested in Bitcoin and crypto after that Bitcoin pump by the end of 2017. And then I started working at a Brazilian exchange. I'm a journalist. My background is as a sports journalist, but then I decided at some point that I didn't want to work with sports or with journalism anymore. So I joined the Foxbit exchange in Brazil. And then I started working in their marketing team, communications and everything. And that's when I actually dived into the community thing and the Web3 industry and crypto, of course. And that's where I learned about pretty much the basics of the crypto industry. And after that, it was just like never stops. Once you enter in this industry, it seems like you cannot leave. So and it's just developing more and more. So I worked after that for Binance for three years basically, and that was a big learning for me because I was the first hire for Binance in Brazil for Latin America. I had the job of developing the Brazilian market for Binance here, which was such a big deal and a big market at the time. It was just a lot of potential. But after the other bull run that we had for crypto, Brazil became such an important market, not only in Latin America or in the Americas, but for the whole world. So it was a lot of learning and a lot of development for the crypto industry in Brazil. So basically, that's a little bit of my story. And then after Binance, I joined the Algorand Foundation. That's where I've been since January, which is a little bit different because it's not that crypto, but it's more like we're talking about Web3 development, applications, blockchain. But it's still very, very interesting market.
Amazing. So on that front, why don't you tell us a bit more about what Algorand is, and then kind of what the foundation does, and then maybe about what your kind of day-to-day, life as a, as the Brazil representative looks like.
Yeah. Well, Algorand is, this is an interesting story because I left Binance to join Algorand. And at first, it seems to some people that it was kind of a crazy idea because Binance was at a little bit before we got this bear market. So it was like the biggest exchange in the world and it's such a big deal. But I got very interested in the project because Algorand is a layer one blockchain. It has great people behind. So Silvio Micali, that it's the founder. It's this Italian guy from the MIT that is a big genius that won a lot of prizes and the Turing Award and a lot of all the awards that you can imagine for cryptography and computer science. So the guy is like a big freaking genius, and he just decided to create a blockchain, and then he made Algorand. And when you do a deep dive on it, or not even a deep dive, just a little dive in it, you just see how amazing it is, how fast it is. It solves a lot of issues. So I got really interested in the project. So basically, what Algorand has is, as I mentioned, a layer one blockchain. That is, it has behind it the pure proof of stake concept. So the pure proof of stake makes it really secure, really fast, and something that we can almost say that it's almost impossible to hack or to change or to do anything with this chain. And it hasn't had a downtime since it started in 2019. So basically, it's a very interesting project. But basically, the advantage for the solutions that want to use Algorand, because I'm not a person that goes like, there's only one true good blockchain. I'm not one of these people. I just believe that there are different chains for different purposes. And for different projects, and for whatever solution that requires scalability and needs to handle critical information, that's Algorand is such an important chain for that, because there's instant finality. And if you want, we can go a little bit deeper on it. But instant finality it's a feature that is very important from Algorand, because it allows the whatever you are registering in the blockchain to actually be final. Because many of the chains, they might have forks during the formation of the blocks. So basically, with Algorand, when something is registered in the blockchain, you can consider it final. So in a nutshell, it's something that it's very important for especially financial applications, in my opinion. Because if you imagine in the future, if banks were all using blockchain technology, you cannot, have something registered in the blockchain and maybe a fork in the future of that specific block will change it all. So you cannot have that at all. So instant finality is something that it's really interesting and really important for critical information. So you can run multiple logics, transfers at the same time. You can have large-scale applications to make composability. So basically, you are sure that the register information is final and confirmed, which is, for me, one of the more interesting features of the Algorand. And compared to maybe other layer one chains, this is one of the advantages. And basically that's it. And you ask about what I do, what is my role doing that in Brazil. It's basically spreading the word. I want people to actually know that Algorand, it's such an amazing chain, but it doesn't have the same marketing as some others. It's not a well-known blockchain. But there's a lot of applications that we still need to develop, especially in the Latin America market and especially in Brazil market. So this is my job, to make Algorand known and grow the community, grow the applications, grow our developer community, because that's one of the pain points that we have for Brazil, for Algorand at the moment. So that's it.
Okay, very cool. Yeah, lot to chew on there, but that sounds really interesting. And I mean, I want to kind of dive in. I don't want to go super technical on this, and you're probably not the most. You probably don't understand all the technicalities, how these things work either. I mean, I don't either. So I mean, but like, how? I mean, in the positioning of, when I think I'm thinking about these other kind of competitive layer ones, or I guess we can use the term like ETH killers. I guess. I mean, I don't know if people still use that term, but that was like one of the terms that was being floated around to kind of describe these alternative layer ones back in the day. And you had a lot of these things popping up. You have like Solana, and you have Near, and you have like even things like Celo that has now kind of pivoted to become like an Ethereum layer 2. From what I understand recently, I'm not really sure how that works, but apparently it's doable. And just kind of curious as to like how would you? I mean, maybe not even talking about so much on the technical side, but more on like the use case side. What are those? Thinking of like a blockchain as more of like a microchip almost, where it's like there are certain chains that are better for certain purposes than others. Like, what are the use cases and applications that maybe our Algorand offers like kind of a competitive advantage to build on?
There are many applications, but I'll just mention here my favorites, and usually the ones that we mention when we're talking about applications, because most of them are related to tokenization, and you can pretty much tokenize anything. So we're talking about real world assets. And we have a lot of use cases in Latin America, especially, not only, but I love the ones that we have in Latin America, especially in Argentina. In Argentina, we are developing, we have a lot of projects over there. And one of the hits that we have at the moment, projects that are very consolidated, are AgroToken. That it's a commodities tokenization. So they tokenize commodities. It's something that you can for the agro industry, and that's pretty important for Brazil. They are growing a lot in Brazil, but also in Argentina, in Latin America in general. Commodities are a big thing. So tokenizing them allows a lot of benefits for the producers for this industry. So it's one of the projects that we have that it's really working fine. And TravelX, that's actually my favorite because it solves real world problems that I have, that you have, that pretty much everyone that uses an airplane and needs tickets and airline tickets have. Because what they do is making every ticket, every flight ticket that you have to become an NFT, which allows you to actually change the information or sell it, resell it, or postpone your flight, something that you cannot do today without paying a lot of fees and a lot of, or even paying a new ticket if you have to change some information. And you cannot change a ticket from under your name to someone else's name. This is something that TravelX is allowing. They are already working with an Argentinian airline. They are negotiating, and pretty soon we're going to launch their partnership with an airline in Brazil, and there are several around the world that they are negotiating as well. So basically, this is one of the good benefits because they reached, I think a couple of weeks ago, 1 million tickets issued as NFTs, which is quite impressive considering that they are basically at the moment working in Argentina only. And expanding to other markets. But it's just an amazing solution because then I can buy in advance a ticket very cheap. And then I can, I don't know, change later. If this date doesn't work for me, I can change in advance. I can sell it to someone else in a second market, or I can, transfer it to my mom or to whoever I want because I cannot take that flight anymore, which solves such a big problem that usually people have nowadays. And for the airline company, it solves a lot of issues as well because they can sell tickets beforehand with a long time before the flight, so they can guarantee that they will have cash flow. They have a lot of they reduce a lot the complaints and their customer service, and they also, as it is an NFT, there's the royalties attached to the company. So whoever sells it or resells the NFT, this NFT ticket, they will receive a percentage of every selling and reselling. So it's just benefits for all sides. So basically, this is one of my favorite projects. And I don't want to mention every single project, but there's a lot of tokenization as well, a lot of properties. When you work with, I'm forgetting the word for that in English, but basically when you're intellectual property, that's it. So for intellectual properties, we have a lot of applications for that all over the world. We have applications for IDs that use the blockchain for creating IDs to help survivors from tragedies. So there's a lot of application also in the music industry and the retail industry with tokenizations of buildings and houses. So you can buy a fraction of a house, for instance, and receive a proportion of whatever is done with this building. So anyway, there's a lot of applications, and I think those are the big hits. Tokenizations in general are the big hit for Algorand. Whatever needs scalability.
Very cool. Very cool. Now, I've written about AgroToken and then TravelX. Those have been around, or those have kind of been in the works for a while now. But I didn't realize that they were on Algorand.
Yeah.
I guess I overlooked that detail, but I've kind of covered some of the announcements that have been made from both of those. But that's super cool. Yeah, a million tickets issued on the TravelX platform using a million NFT tickets. That's super, and then just one country. That's super interesting. And it sounds like there's some like real, tangible benefits to using that tech that like average consumers can benefit from. Not just sort of crypto people. So that's super interesting.
And if you think that it was just in one country, as soon as this is scale up, this is why you need a chain that can actually afford to have this scalability. Because if you go to different countries, you can imagine how many more tickets they will be issuing. So
yeah, absolutely. And Argentina is what, like 30, 40 million people maybe, population wise. I should probably know that, but I don't. But just using. Yeah, but there's maybe like a small fraction of those people that are commuting by buying airplane tickets regularly. And that already adds up to 1 million tickets. So that's obviously, that you're obviously going to need a lot of scalability if that's going to be a solution like that's going to be rolled out in other markets. So that's super interesting. I'd love to learn a bit more about, I think your experience is really unique in the sense that you came in, you kind of got in like, 2017, 18, you joined Binance, you helped kind of bootstrap like the Binance brand and community in Brazil. And then Binance has become kind of like a giant in the market. I mean, it's really even after this new law, and even after there's like a lot of people that don't like Binance, obviously, because like it's so big and like so obviously it went from like zero to basically being at least half, 2/3 of the market share within a couple years, and obviously had a lot of success with that. And then now you're starting off kind of fresh with a different type of project, really trying to bootstrap, really trying to build community, really just trying to get people interested in the project. Obviously, it's a bit different market. You're not going after just retail customers or it's a very different kind of. You're going after more of like builders and developers and just kind of community enthusiast type people that may not necessarily be builders, developers, but they have they're token holders, so they're just interested in the project for whatever other reason. I was hoping you could maybe talk a bit about like what has it been like to build these types of brands and communities in the Brazil market, kind of starting from scratch with both of these essentially.
They are definitely different workplaces and activities that I have to do, although the building of the community is something very similar, because exactly what you mentioned when you're talking about Binance or any exchange, you were talking about retail user, you were talking about market conditions, you were talking about prices going up and down and people getting interested in investing. In Brazil, I believe that in many countries and cultures it is the same, but Brazil, I can talk especially that a lot of people are basically interested in making money and easy money. So we don't invest much in, I don't know, regular traditional investments like the stock market. A lot of Brazilians flee from the stock market. Like I don't want to get close to it. It's too complicated. But crypto sounds so simple. You just register at an exchange. You just add your information. You just deposit, and clean. You have Bitcoin or whatever in your account, and it is quite simple, the user experience. So it is also very interesting because you see what happened to Bitcoin in the past 3-4 years. So of course, everyone wants to be part of it. So basically in Brazil, crypto had a big boom after 2021, especially. And when I was at Binance, when I joined Binance, we were still not in a bear market, but it was kind of a not that interesting market. And Brazil was like, for Binance, not even top 10 market or in number of users and trading users. And by the time we got this bull run from 2020, 2021, we got Brazil became second top 2 market at Binance at the time. So it was quite impressive because Brazilians have a big adoption. So basically, what I want to say is that it's not that my work was easier, because of course there was a lot of work to build that, but it when you have a bull run, when you have a lot of people interested in it, it's, if you just do the right marketing to them, you can attract draw these users to your platform. And Binance has such an amazing platform. So basically all you have to do is make people know that you exist. And with Algorand, it's totally different. Not only we are living a bear market, which in general pushes people away from Web3 and blockchain or crypto or whatever, but also it's what you mentioned. You have to convince people to be interested in your project and in the technology. So you talk a lot to builders and projects and entrepreneurs. Like you have a startup. Why should you be using blockchain, and why should you be using Algorand? So I have to reach these people. And Algorand, in its past, has never really invested in marketing. These efforts are very recent. So you see a lot of our competitors, and some of them you mentioned here, they are building community in Brazil for like 4, 5, 6 years. So they are well known. And maybe those chains are not better in many aspects, or in some aspects better than Algorand, but people don't know Algorand. So it is a bigger challenge on that side, that I want to make Algorand known. Like, I want people to know who is Silvio Micali behind it. I want people to know how many great applications we can have. So it is a bigger challenge, and you are talking more to the enthusiasts and to developers and to builders. So it is a very different community. We're not talking about people that want to make money, because of course there are some that might be interested in holding the token because they think that they will be rich because they believe in the project, or not. They are just, betting on it. But basically, the community for a blockchain is people that actually believe in the protocol. So in that white paper that was written. So it is very different. And I think that it's a lot harder because not because the competition is hard, but because this size of community is very smaller than people who wants to just become rich from overnight.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally hear that, and I think there as a journalist, as a journalist who's been in this space for a while, and probably yourself as a former journalist, you probably have some similar instincts here. But there's kind of, I've always had this sort of inverse correlation in my mind of the amount of marketing and like PR that a particular company or project is putting out. There's like an inverse correlation to like how interesting the work they're actually doing is. So like the people that are putting out just like tons of PR, tons of marketing, it's like more often than not, there's like not really anything there. But it's the people that are doing like really interesting stuff that like aren't even really that concerned with doing the PR behind it. Like those are the people I want to talk to, right? Because they're just like, I'm building something cool I know is cool. I don't need like a fancy marketing apparatus to like tell people about it. Like
My
I just know it's
technology
cool.
speaks for itself. This was
Yeah,
like probably the internal model at Algorand for a long time, but we do need a little bit of marketing at least.
yeah,
Otherwise, people won't get to know you.
yeah, absolutely. And I think you guys got a nice push earlier this year when this might even be the Algorand like Silvio Micali claim to fame in crypto is when that video of Gary Gensler from like 2018 talking about talking about Algorand and how it was like a great project surfaced. And then this was back when he was calling everything a security and whatnot. And then people are like, wait a minute, there's this video of you talking about this coin and how great it is from 5 years ago. And now you're saying it's a security and it's illegal and all this stuff. Anyway, so that was a nice little like
Yeah,
Algorand publicity
that's not
bump.
happening in the market either.
So, uh, but anyway, yeah, that's not helping things either, right? Some of the stuff that
Not only
happened.
for Algorand, but for the whole industry.
Yeah,
It
absolutely.
hasn't been easy.
Yeah, it's definitely not easy, right? Um, so I mean, but just kind of back to this, it sounds like you're trying to really be just smart about how you're marketing Algorand in the community here in Brazil, and just not trying to be like over the top about it, but trying to just market like effectively, trying to identify who are the people you're trying to target. Maybe talk about like what channels have you been using to try to identify people or to reach people, or what have you found to be most effective? Maybe what hasn't been as effective as you would have hoped.
Uh, Basically, we got this year, by the end of last year and the beginning of this year, the in real life events really came strong again. Because when I joined Binance, I was just starting to do events, offline events, and we got the pandemic starting. So it was a lot of online, and then we finally got rid of it, and we finally started doing offline events, and now it seems like a big trend. But at least what I feel in Brazil is that first half of the year, I attended so many events. I was I was getting tired, because if you wanted, you could actually have at least 3 or 4 events a week, Web3 events, from the small ones to the big ones, if you are in a big city such as São Paulo, as I am. So there was always some event to attend. Of course, I did not attend all of them, but there was all these gatherings, these meetups, the ones with panels and discussions, the big events, and the small ones with just happy hours and getting together. So this is what was actually moving in the first half. But I think that things started getting harder and harder. The bear market, it's brutal at the moment. So what we are seeing is that people are actually not going anymore to the events. And actually what I see is that a lot of the interest that many people, not the real enthusiasts from Web3, but those just curious about it. They are kind of moving towards different technologies, and they are not that interested in blockchain or Web3 in general anymore. They're going for AI, for instance. So events that are discussing more AI than Web3, they're getting a lot of people and a lot of attraction and interest. But Web3 is kind of dormant at the moment. The people are just waiting for the bull to wake up again, because so we were investing a lot in events in Rio and São Paulo mainly, because those are the big cities, and I'm basically all by myself. I have the help of two champions in Brazil, the champions that we it's how we call them, but they're basically ambassadors of the brand. But that's it. So there's no scalability for me to be attending many, and there's also not that much budget. This is one of the brutal things as well from the bear market. So we were trying to do some events, NFT events, panels and meetups and discussions, but I believe that online events makes more sense at the moment, because then you can reach more people, and you can try to find these people that are not attending those events, in real life events anymore. And basically the social media channels, I started Instagram for us in Brazil. As you probably know, living here, is that Instagram, it's a big thing in Brazil. So we were basically on Twitter, and it worked for a while, but Twitter is more restricted in Brazil to Web3 hardcore people, and many of them are not that interested in engaging anymore. So we're going for different channels. So basically online events, webinars, social media, and producing content explaining about our applications, our assets. It's been a hard work, but I believe that it's not only for Algorand, but basically I see everyone else and all the other chains and multi-chains and crypto industry, Web3 industry in general. Everyone is struggling at this particular moment.
Yeah, that's definitely true. I think, and the first thing that gets slashed in times like this is the marketing budgets, right? So you have to kind of get creative with limited resources and limited. I mean, the nice thing about the online events is like you can do these things, basically for free, right? In a lot of instances, right? So it's like you can, or minimal cost. So it's an easy way to keep getting the word out, even with minimal financial commitments. I mean, one other thing I wanted to ask here was, I mean, I thought you had a really interesting point just now about Twitter, right? Where, and I found this to be a bit perplexing. Whereas kind of the normal crypto industry, like kind of the mainstream crypto industry, basically lives on Twitter, right? But in Brazil,
or X.
like,
it's not Twitter anymore.
X, whatever we're calling it now, yeah. But in Brazil, it's the Brazil Twitter community seems very limited to. Basically, like you have a lot of some Bitcoin maximalist type people, and maybe some some like Ethereum maxi, like Bankless Brazil type guys, and then but that's like kind of it. Like I'm a little bit I'm a little bit like conflicted personally over like how much I should be investing in posting stuff on Twitter, because like it doesn't really seem like the people I'm trying to reach are at least the Brazilian audience that I'm trying to reach is like really there. But at the same time, that's where like all of the crypto industry is, right? So it's an interesting kind of like conflict here of like, but I'm just kind of, maybe I'd love your take on like, why is crypto Brazil Twitter like not taken off?
Yeah, exactly. And I don't have the answer for that, but I do feel the same. And I've been trying to do that for my past experiences as well. And Twitter never had too much engagement from this community itself. And I personally don't like the Instagram for this kind of interaction, because actually Instagram, you can share a lot of content. So you can create reels and videos and be very educational, but not necessarily you have a lot of interaction. The way that Twitter is made, you can actually have a conversation, you can reply, you can have a thread. There's a lot of interesting features that you can use to interact. But I don't know, I just don't understand why Brazilians don't like Twitter. So we're not there, many of us are not there, at least in Web3. So This is why we are investing on our side more on Instagram, because it's crazy. When I attend an event, like an entrepreneurs event, I introduce them to Algorand and our features, use cases, how it can be interesting for your project. I share like follow us on social media. By the end of the presentation, there's always the QR code, and we have like, I don't know, 20 new followers on Instagram and 1 on Twitter, or 0 on Twitter. So that's the proportion. It's really crazy. So people are actually going to Instagram. So let's produce content to them. We just cannot engage with them in the same way that we'll have an interaction on Twitter. But this is one of the strategies that I have been trying to use, like trying to produce interesting content for Instagram. Otherwise, I don't know how to talk to these people. Of course, there's Discord, there's Reddit, there's a lot of traditional Web3 channels, but it is different. It is very different.
Yeah, yeah. And even just before this, I was looking at the Portal do Bitcoin Instagram feed. Or on Twitter, they have maybe like 1,000 followers, and on Instagram, they have 100,000. So I was like,
Proportion
okay,
is insane.
I guess people prefer Instagram here. So that's been a shift for me. I've never been on Instagram before. Before like 3 months ago, I've just refused to use Facebook products. I guess, except I have an Oculus headset, but beyond that, I don't use Facebook products.
And I understand you.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't. I was gonna sign up for this like Threads, this new Twitter app that they rolled out with, but it seemed sort of like, anyway, we don't have to go down that rabbit hole. But one other thing I wanted to ask you here, just kind of on the subject of community management and just community building in LATAM. When you're looking at, like, you have these big global protocols, whether it's Ethereum, whether it's Near, or whether it's Algorand, or whether it's Polygon, or all these guys. They all have kind of their like their center of gravity, generally in like North America, generally in like Europe, generally in Asia, and they, like, a lot of times it just feels like Latin America is kind of this like forgotten about place, and it's like, oh, maybe we'll do some like financial inclusion stuff in Latin America or something, right? And it doesn't appear to be like a huge priority. And even just talking to, like, some of the other event organizers here in Brazil, like, the Ethereum Brazil guys, they're like, guys, like, come pay attention to Brazil. Like, there's stuff going on here. You need to know about this. And I'd just be kind of curious as to your take on, like, what would it, like, why is this? Like, why is Brazil like relatively overlooked among kind of the global community, maybe? And, what do you see as, like, what needs to be done to sort of start changing some of these perceptions?
Taking specifically the Algorand case, I believe that not only Algorand, but I think that we lack in Brazil some big projects that get international attention, but also the big ones that we have in Latam. Again, taking Algorand as an example, we have amazing projects in Argentina. I mentioned 2 of them, but there's also Coinbanks. There are others that are very important projects for us that are doing major stuff in many other countries in the world. But probably a lot of people don't know that they are from Argentina or that they are from Latin America. So I think that somehow the success projects that we have still need to cause an impact that to be seen in other countries, in other regions. For instance, Asia has so many countries that are just as third world or just as poor as many of the countries that we have in Latin America. But in Asia, you have such a big tradition of tech. They are like very technological. They have such an amazing interest in crypto since the beginning. And Latin America was a little bit slower on that. Like African countries were a little bit slower, and boom, then Nigeria comes and takes over as one of the biggest markets, crypto markets in the world. So I think that this is lacking for Latin America, for people to actually see the potential. We don't have that much technology. We don't develop that much our technology, but we consume a lot of technology. So as I mentioned, Brazil just grew in one bull run, in one bull market. Brazil became, I don't know, from top 15 to top 2 or top 3 at the largest crypto exchange in the world. That's something to be noticeable. Like, we consume a lot of technology. There's anything new that is launched, Brazilians are buying, are using, are trying it out. So not only Brazil, Latin America in general, but there's a lot of potential that is not being seen. I don't know if I have an answer for that, but what I see is that there's a lot of overlooking. People are not actually noticing the potential that we have, and if we don't have the investments to go further, it's a lot harder for Latin America projects and startups to actually get more attention. But there's a lot of potential, and we lack investment. Basically, that's the story of Latin America, to be honest.
Yeah,
but
right. Yeah, it doesn't apply to just crypto, right? It applies to a lot of
yeah.
other things as well. And maybe on that front, maybe talk a bit about, so what are some of the programs, or maybe like grant programs, or developer support or builder programs, builder funnel type programs that Algorand Foundation offers, that maybe somebody who's listening to this, and they're like, hey, this sounds interesting, I'd like to learn more, like to, what does your builders funnel look like, and what opportunities are available to maybe entrepreneurs or builders in the region who would like to learn more?
On the developer side, especially, I would say that this is, as I mentioned, a pain point or a low-hanging fruit for Brazil, because we currently don't have that that effort turned to Brazil. Like, we don't have people, we don't have DevRel, so developers relations, to be done in Brazil at the moment. But we do have for the rest of Latin America, and that's very strong. So currently, the most straightforward path that we have for developers is for developers, sorry, because we are every now and then creating boot camps to train the developers. That's very strong for us in Spanish speaking countries, basically. And on the builders and entrepreneur side, we are partnering and looking for and finding incubation programs to work together to attract those new projects to build on our blockchain. So there's a lot of awareness work that we do, but really hands-on work are those boot camps and those trainings that can be online. We do a lot of in real life boot camps and workshops as well. And there's a lot to be done, because if we don't go for the developers audience, you basically don't have people that are actually building in your chain. So this is, as I mentioned, for Brazil, it's still a pain point that we are trying to address for the rest of this year and the beginning of next year. But we are lacking resources as well at the moment.
Got it. And then for accessing or kind of getting in front of this developer community, I mean, do you find, maybe what's the biggest challenge with kind of getting their interest, right? We know these people exist. Is it a question of, trying to recruit like a Web2 developer or a student or something? Like, okay, first of all, you need to convince them that they should come to Web3. And then second of all, you need to convince them that they should come to Algorand instead of the gazillion other chains that are out there that might be recruiting them or trying to, trying to woo them in some fashion. I mean, I guess it would be interesting to hear your perspective on, like, what is it? I mean, do people, like, what are the kind of the main points with actually, like, once you find these people, like, how do you actually kind of get them into your funnel?
I think that you nailed it in your comments, because what I feel, and personally, that's what I feel in Brazil and the developers that I got in touch, basically, is that many Web2 developers are not interested in Web3, and this bear market, it's not helping because they don't see that much potential. It's not something that it's really on the hype at the moment. When something is on a hype, it's so easy for you to just get to know us, come closer. We have a lot of material that it's easy. So convincing Web2 developers to actually dive a little bit on Web3 and understand and see the potential of it, it's one of the it's the first step. And the second step is, as you mentioned, to convince them to come to Algorand. But what we have globally is that we have the Algo Kit, that is such an amazing tool, or combination of tools that makes this transition really, really smooth, and we are improving that a lot. So this is something that I can easily criticize maybe the marketing side, or maybe many things from the Algorand, but the tech side, it's like almost flawless. I cannot say that it's flawless, but it's almost flawless. We have our CTO is such a genius guy. He's amazing. It's John Woods from the foundation. And on the tech side of Algorand Inc. itself, we have Silvio and his team behind it. And this is like, if they invest in something, is on the tech side. So basically, we do have amazing tools to make this transition easier for those developers. We just have to get to know them. We just have to reach them and actually convince them. So basically, the step one of convincing these developers to actually move to Web3, it's even harder than to convince them to come to Algorand, because once you are already interested in Web3, you can try it out many different chains. But if you have a good pack of tools, it's easier for them to get interested in yours. But first, they have to be interested in Web3, in building a blockchain.
Yeah. So that's been the main pain point, it sounds like, is really just getting people interested in this. And especially during this market, it's not the, things are kind of in a doldrums right now. So it's not the most exciting thing to jump into.
Exactly. Start learning something new from scratch, and I don't even see the potential of it at the moment. Why should I do that? So
yeah, it's a tough sell. But I think we're all kind of in that same boat, right? So maybe to kind of wrap up here with a couple wrap up questions. Do you have any? I mean, maybe give us like next six months on any like exciting news on your end or on the Algorand Foundation side. Anything that we should be looking out for? Any new partnerships or kind of announcements that might be in the works that you can maybe tee up for us a little bit here?
Probably I cannot share anything that it's confidential, but I can say that for Latin America, for Brazil specifically, we don't have many projects in Brazil, but we have a lot of projects onboarding. So probably in the future, we're going to have some interesting, many of them are still early stage. So I cannot say in 6 months, but I can say that some of them are already flourishing, they're already growing. So there's a lot of early stage projects that are onboarding with us in Brazil. And we, especially on tokenization side, which will be a lot of interesting features for those that want to start using blockchain. So maybe in a startup that doesn't want to necessarily to go directly to a blockchain, but they want to get involved somehow, they can use this tokenizations company. So there's a lot to be done and across work level. So this is something that I see as interesting for Brazil. And in Latin America, we have a partnership with BAF, that is the Blockchain Acceleration Foundation. It's a nonprofit organization that is accelerating and developing a lot of projects on blockchain, basically. So the idea is to get more partnerships with incubators, as I mentioned before. And we work a lot with students as well. We have a strong students and university program that we are investing more in Latin America. So we also expect some good outcomes in the future, not so near future, but in the future, we're investing a lot on the universities and the student side. And I think basically that's it. And on the tech side from Algorand, we just recently advertised, maybe that I can say that we are on 10,000 TPS, so transactions per second, which is pretty fast. It's an improvement from what we had before. It was 6,000. Actually, we can perform even more than 10,000, but that's what we say that we can, because that's what we can guarantee. And by the end of the year, we expect to be doing even more than that, so even faster and with more scalability. And we are completing a block in 3.3 seconds. And this is also something that we intend to go to less than 3 seconds, like 2.7 something, so even faster. That's already way faster than most of the chains. But of course, every fraction of second that you can go down, it's always important when you're talking about this, anything that needs scalability. So I don't know if that's exciting enough, but those are the things that we are working on.
Oh, that's very cool. Very cool. Well, anyway, actually, one more question I had for you. Just on the tokenization front, would you be curious to hear, like, what have you been involved in any discussions with some of the larger financial institutions here in Brazil that are looking at tokenization, asset tokenization a bit more aggressively? Or are those folks, are they kind of, when they look at like a permissionless chain, open public permissionless chain, do they get kind of scared away from some of that? Or is this something that they're looking at, that they're kind of testing out? Or, I mean, what's the reception been from kind of, I guess, the TradFi community here that is looking into some of these tokenization use cases?
I don't feel that much enthusiasm still in Brazil or in Latin America. In Latin America, maybe a little bit more because we have already some good tokenizations companies, as I mentioned. But I believe that in US for Algorand, we have a lot of interest coming up from that side. But there's I believe that there's a big fear, as you mentioned. There's still a kind of people are still waiting to see where it goes. As I mentioned before, like this bear market, it's a problem in many fronts because it puts people away. When you're on a hype, no one actually thinks too much. They go for it because everyone is talking about it. And when we're not, everyone is even more cautious than they would be at any other point. So what I believe is in US especially, what I see is that we are more advanced on that front. But in Latin America, I see still, especially in Brazil, there's not many people looking at tokenization as they could be. So there's more projects coming up in other places, I would say.
Got it. So in your view, the interest in Brazil is really, it's really relegated to more like kind of the permission to chains, like kind of your hyper ledgers and your, I guess, I'm not sure if Hathor, I'm not really sure if what they are exactly. I should probably know that, but anyway, but more of these kind of like, they aren't just like the pure open public chains that we see kind of out in the wild essentially, but it's more controlled environments that arguably they offer a little bit more control, but they also offer a lot less of the, kind of the features of what makes blockchain unique, I guess. So, well, with that, would love to kind of give you the last word here. Any final thoughts from you? If people want to get in touch with you or learn more about Algorand, where should they go?
Basically to our social media channels. If you're a Portuguese speaker, if you're a Brazilian, we have Algorand Brazil for all the main social medias, as I mentioned. So Instagram, Twitter, we are on Telegram. We are not on Brazil. We have a global account on Reddit and Discord, but you can find us there. And if you are English speaker, but you are interested in Algorand, we are basically in all the channels as well. And we have a very strong YouTube for devs. So if you are a dev and you're interested in learning how to build on Algorand, there's a lot of interesting content in Spanish and in English for Algorand. So basically, just reach us on social media, and you get probably the information that you want. And as a final message is, I think I made that very clear, but I'm very thrilled and excited about Algorand because the people behind it, they are very good. Not only Silvio Micali, that is the founder, that is a genius, but this is something that actually made a difference for me when I decided to move from Binance to Algorand. Was that during my interview process, I loved talking to everyone. Everyone was very engaged and everyone was very senior level, so you see that as a company that actually invests in the people that are there, different from many other startups and companies that just hire a bunch of junior people and just to get work done. You see that in Algorand there's a lot of focus on the strategy, which I think it's it's important if you have good people behind your project. I think that's really interesting. So I'm very passionate about the way that Algorand deals with its work and what they have to offer. So basically that's it. If you liked it as well, just reach us on social media and Algorand Brazil or Algorand Foundation on English channels. And that's it. Thank you.
Amazing. Amazing. Well, Mayra, thank you so much for your time today. It was great having you on the show. And thanks to everyone for listening, and we will catch you next time.
Thank you.